Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Sheikh, you guys. How was your weekend? James is here. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday, James. Hi, Mona. Hi, Dr. Kabiri. So nice to see you. You guys, I have my awesome guest back. I had this guest a couple of weeks ago, and we literally could not stop talking. Even after my live stream, we were on the call for like 2 hours. I kid you not. And we had to literally end it because we were both starving at that point. And we were like, yeah, we should go and eat something. So I am very excited to bring back my very amazing guest today. She is a decision scientist. I hope that I did not butcher that. And she runs an amazing consulting firm called Kabiri Consulting. Here is the very talented Nika Kabiri. How are you?
Hi.
So nice
to
see you.
Be back.
Thank you for being back. This is so great.
Yeah, it is.
Nika, let's jump into it.
Mm-hmm.
How many toxic men are really out there in workplaces and in personal lives? I mean, I have so many stories. It could be like fucking Tolstoy. It could be like War and Peace. It could be like this big. What is your experience as a decision scientist?
Okay, as a decision scientist, I can't allow myself to even ask that question.
Okay.
Without first asking, like, what does toxic even mean? Because I think a lot of times we take it for granted, like it doesn't feel good to us, or it's damaging to people, or it's damaging to the context. But like, I've been in work environments where I've had bosses that were toxic to other people and then not toxic to the other half of the group. So I don't even know what toxic even means anymore. I think we've used it so much.
Okay. How would you describe toxic?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think about what works. That's how I think about the work, like what actually works. And it doesn't work, for instance, to like inequality doesn't work to me. Like, treating people, thinking that there's an other and there's an me and that, I'm better than the other. Like that whole thing it doesn't pan out well. You can't produce much in the business world. You can't really society doesn't function well that way. Even though we think it does. So I think that maybe if I were to define it, it would be something that doesn't work. Oh, is there a reverb? There's a reverberation there. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. There's behavior that doesn't work and people know it doesn't work and they keep doing it. And maybe that's what toxicity is to me. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, just in the context that we're speaking, like toxic men, right? This has been I think this is a lingo that has really come up, in the post-Me Too world, right? I mean, I think it's kind of lingered around before, but now this whole thing about toxic masculinity is a really big part of the conversation. And to me, being a toxic masculine or toxic man, a toxic person, to me is someone who does not take accountability, right? Narcissistic, selfish, destructive, whether it be there's sexual outlandish behavior, whether it be verbal, whether it be, whatever. Like, to me, that's what toxicity is. And I think, if you look at your Harvey Weinstein and your Jeff Epstein and, Bill Cosby and Louis C.K. and Chris D'Elia and all these men that have come out are toxic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we disagree. I mean, I don't think that's too far off from what I'm thinking, because if our end game in a society is for everyone in our society to have as much happiness as possible, not one group more than another, not some privileged group but more than another, but if our end game is for everyone to be okay, then those kinds of behaviors just don't work. They don't lead to that. I think the thing that's really tricky is that there are people, there are men who believe that shouldn't, or maybe necessarily isn't, the ideal situation, that maybe their happiness, their contentment at the expense of others is what works. That's the end game they're seeking. And that's just
but
not.
But Nika, that is, you're talking about centuries of toxic behavior that is just tolerated under and disguised as boys will be boys, right? Boys will be boys. And it's like, no, fuck that. No, boys will not be boys. boys will be held accountable for their shitty attitude and the shitty behavior. That's what boys will be. Just like women, for the slightest things, are held to this very high standard that women have to constantly live up to the super high standard of like, you have to be perfect and you have to be ladylike, which is something I hear in the stand-up comedy world a lot. Be ladylike. Oh my God, Mona, you curse a lot. Well, fuck off. If you don't fucking like my comedy, fuck right off. I don't fucking care. Like, who are my fans? Like, I learned this long time ago, Nika. People that matter don't mind, and people that mind don't matter. And it's the truth. Like, so for me, it's so much about how many toxic men I have come across, not just in work environment, but in my personal lives too. And they're just kind of given this free pass because they're men. Or it's like, oh, like even my mom would say things like, oh, well, they're just boys, so they just do that. And it's like, no, fuck that. You did something shitty to another human being. Your gender does not excuse you from being a crappy human being. How do you feel?
I feel like that's a lot. I think, yeah, no one's gender. See, I have to be much more scientific. I mean, we talked about this on the last podcast interview. Like, I'm a little bit more algorithmic in the way I think about things, right? Like, no one has that kind of right to, they shouldn't have the right to just get away with hurting another person for no good. I mean, for just no reason, for hurting another person and not being held accountable to that. That doesn't seem fair to me in any way. And because of the way that most societies have been structured and have existed for so many years, there is a privileged class. There's a privileged. There are different types of privileged groups. Yeah. There are white. There are men. They have a lot of money that have had the power to dictate what the rules are. And I think where we are right now is in a point where the power dynamics have shifted. And I think the economics have changed that. Like, women entering the workforce have given us financial power. It's given us a lot of vocal power. And, African Americans have had a lot more rights now than they did. I mean, they're getting slowly, there are efforts at chipping away at that. But the power dynamics have shifted. Those who are in power are a little freaked out.
Right.
Obviously, I mean, it's just the end. I think it's an end of an era of this kind of toxicity is right around the corner if we play our cards right. I don't know if I'm just repeating myself or rambling. I don't know.
No, I don't think you're rambling. I feel like it goes back to, I mean, we're not looking at like, oh, this has only happened in last 10, 15 years. We're talking about pretty much the beginning of time. Yeah. We're talking about like caveman days, right? Caveman was like, I bring you food. I hunt food. I bring it. Now, touch my pee-pee. Bow to me. I am the man. Beat in my chest, right? And then now that has translated to your footballs, games and your basketball games. And, it's the, I'm a masculine man that beats my chest and I call the shots. I think a lot of men, especially my generation men, are having a really, really hard time with this power sharing. They're having a really difficult time. I mean, I come across guys, and the moment they find out I'm a stand-up comic or I'm established, they really want nothing to do with me. They want to back up. So it's either they'll get really intimidated or they get scared, or then they try to demean me because that's their way of like trying to find control. So and this is a pattern that I'm seeing over and over again, but men are having a really, really hard time. But this toxicity, I feel like it's not, what I've noticed, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Whenever I have brought up like a fucked up thing that a man has done and brought it to another male friend, the male friend would be like, oh, that guy's a douchebag. Just don't worry about him. It's not like this kind of nuanced conversation or a nuanced breakdown of why this person's a douchebag, right? It's just a dismissive thing saying, oh, this person's a douchebag. And it's just like, well, guys also, let's not forget, if a guy is cheating on his girlfriend and his dude friends know, they're not going to be like, hey, man, that's not the right thing. Don't do that. Don't do it. That's fucked up. Don't do that. They'll be like, hey man, it's none of my business. As long as you do your thing. Like, you do your thing. That's toxic.
Yeah. I totally get that it's really hard for a lot of men to kind of understand what's going on right now, because there's a relearning going on. Like men are having to unlearn and relearn. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to learn math or you're trying to learn, like, I don't know, how to fix a car, or you're trying to learn gender relations. If you're forced to learn something new that has such high stakes, it's going to be hard. And there's going to be a little bit of frustration. And especially since if you haven't been held to task to do that kind of learning yet, and it's sort of ingrained in the way you've been socialized as a young boy growing up, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard.
Right.
What I kind of struggle with sometimes, there are, the real, predators of the world, right? That they almost intend, or maybe they don't intend to be toxic, but they don't even care how toxic. They intend to do what they want to do and get what they need out of other people. And that's the way it is. But I think the large majority of men are really probably just confused, because they have been socialized a specific way. They haven't been held to task for any other way. And now they have to freaking figure it all out. And I mean, they should suck it up and do it. Like, they should suck it up and do it. But yeah, I get that. Right.
We have some comments that are coming in here that are very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Two Wheels Down said, I'm a straight white male. I'm a lowly bartender, but the only power I got is Jack Daniels.
Yeah. I hear this from my partner a lot, my boyfriend, who, he's a blue collar worker. He does construction, handyman work. And he says, he's like, white male privilege. That's not me. I don't get that. Like, that's something that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he said, hey, women cheat as much. I don't know if women cheat just as much as men. However, I do want to point out that, this kind of toxicity that we're talking about, it's not just in cheating. It permeates in other places. We're talking about, not wanting to see another woman, compete for the same job as you. Not wanting to pay the woman for the full price as another guy does. I mean, this is a big conversation that's happening in stand-up comedy, where somebody like Jerry Seinfeld's making $100 million, and Amy Schumer, or another female comic who's at the top of her game, is barely making $13-14 million. How the fuck is that possible?
But Mona, okay, so here's something that I kind of I struggle with. Well, okay, let me back up. As far as who cheats more, men or women, if you're going to ask women, they'll say men cheat more. And if you ask men, they're going to say women cheat more, because the way, and this is where decision science is actually useful.
Okay, let's do this.
The likelihood that something's going to happen it should be dependent on actual statistics. Like, we should just do research and figure out, like, who are all the cheaters in the world and what's their gender. Like, we could do surveys, or we could, whatever. But we don't do that. What we tend to do is go to our memories. We go to our memories and we think about, okay, like, who cheats more, men or women? Well, how many times have I heard about a woman cheating? And how many times have I heard about a man cheating? And we will use our memories to determine what likelihoods there are. And that's behavioral science. That's called the availability heuristic. That's what we do. And it's not accurate. It's just not accurate statistics. If you're a woman and you have female friends whose boyfriends have cheated on them, you're going to hear those stories, and you're going to think men cheat more. And if you're a guy, you're going to hear your guy friends talk about women cheating on them. You're not going to hear about the opposite sex's stories. So you're going to think whether I have no idea. I'm sure there's research out there. We should probably look it up. I could look it up and let you know later. But I don't really think it's fair to have that argument with just our memories, trying to use our memories to think about that. And the other thing that I wonder is, how do we move this along? Because all I personally think matters is what works. Again, like, it's all back to what works.
Sure.
How do we make sure equality is happening, and not just gender equality, but also class equality and racial equality? Like, how do we make sure that happens? So I want to ask you, do you think that it is fair to bring those people, those toxic men along by reaching out with some sort of, I don't know, effort to educate and teach in a compassionate way? Or is it best to punish, sanction bad behavior so they learn what bad behavior is?
Sorry, the toxic men part you said, sorry, and repeat the last part, the second portion of the
yeah. So say there are toxic men in your life, or we all have toxic people in our lives. Is the best thing to do to sanction or punish their behavior so that they stop doing what they're doing, and do you think they'll learn that way?
Yeah.
Or does it work better to just, reach out, have conversations in a less confrontational way? Because I'm not sure.
Well, let's look at what's in the media and what has worked and what doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. What it seems like, because the reason being that you have these really big cases, and this has been happening in the corporate world too, but like your likes of Bill Cosby and your Harvey Weinstein, and the only reason they've been getting away with it is because there were no repercussions for it. There were people around them that supported them, that encouraged them, that created these horrific platforms for these women to be raped by these men, right? So is it a good idea to confront them head on? Well, even when you confront them head on, they don't take any responsibility. And if you're nice about it, they still don't take responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's really about taking accountability. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of other garbage women out there too who also cheat, right? I don't know what the percentage is, but however, the only thing I'm going to say about that is that you don't see women picking up guns and going on mass shootings, okay? Because they couldn't avoid a fucking temptation, because they couldn't get enough dicks in their mouths. Let's be fucking real about this, okay? Sorry to be so crass about it. Like that guy who shot up the spas in Atlanta, he said that he couldn't resist temptation, so he had to pick up a gun and go shoot up these innocent women. He killed 8 people. Most of them were women, immigrant women, because he couldn't avoid the temptation. You're not going to see women do that. Even if men are horrific to us, we still don't pick up the gun and go and fucking shoot them. Now, there have been exception cases where women have taken matters into their hands. Lorraine about it. Chopped the dick off, but then that story is very interesting too. He got his penis stitched back up, and then he was being paraded around as a fucking stud muffin. He even made a porno. He was on Howard Stern. They were parading this man around like a fucking war hero, and he wasn't. He was a piece of shit. He beat the shit out of Lorena for years and never had any repercussions. There was no accountability, and he got away with it, and then he was celebrated for being a piece of shit. So does it work? I mean, the bottom line is hold them accountable, whether it is full-blown confrontation. Look, I've tried to be nice to douchebags in my life, but it didn't work. So I had to kind of go full-blown and confront them. And even then they don't want to confront it. So I think it goes back to so much of how these men are raised and what kind of bullshit they're taught. Now, you also have to kind of look at what the parents are saying. Are these raised by single mothers? I've noticed that whenever a guy is raised by a single mother, there tends to be this real level of love and respect for women. I don't know. That's what I've come across. This tends to be this, my mom's amazing. She's went through so much. She's incredible. But that could be just my experience. So that's kind of where my thing is. Hold people accountable. Like, if you are a shitty human being, just because you say boys will be boys is no longer good enough. You're an asshole. You need to be held accountable. Period. Right? I think last time you came over, Nika, I don't think we talked about this. Look, I grew up with immense amount of physical abuse in my life. Immense, right? From my dad beating the living shit out of me, for my 4 brothers beating the crap out of me. They were never held accountable. And the only person who always held me back from pressing any kinds of charges on my brothers when the cops would arrive would be my mother. My mom would be like, oh my God, you're going to bring shame upon the family. She was putting the shame and the blame back on me. How the fuck is the shame and the blame being put back on me when you're the one who's encouraging fucked up, unaccountable, toxic behavior? You know?
Yep. I get that. It's interesting. I think our experiences it's like our experiences are probably different, because I have experienced quite a few women in my life, quite a few women who've devastated me in ways that I feel were very toxic, who mansplained to me in ways that made me feel degraded or kind of dismissed. And it might be because I think I maybe valued their opinion more. Maybe I cared what they had to say. I used to train at an MMA gym, and I was a competitive kickboxer, and I was the only girl on the team. Like, I was the only, and this was before Ronda Rousey was even anybody knew she was. And I was the only, and these were guys who were like, they were talking not about like the strip club they went to, but their favorite strip clubs, like, which is a completely different level of, and they were
douchebaggery. I think the word you're looking for is douchebaggery.
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting, because I train with these guys and I saw other sides to them, and I saw opportunities to turn that around. Like, I saw opportunities to I don't know, to kind of speak a little bit of truth to power in a way that they actually paid attention to.
And did it work?
If I had kept at it for longer, I might have probably done some good. Like, the guy who has a favorite strip club, he ended up marrying a really nice girl, having a really great, just what seemed to be a very loving, healthy relationship. So I think it's much more complicated than that. And I don't want to give a pass to people who are predatory. I don't want to do that. I think there's a very big difference between Harvey Weinstein, who uses position of power, who develops a system around him to prop himself up in that position and to take advantage of women, just to get his rocks off. Like, you can do better than that, dude. I mean, really, like, it's almost like not even worth commenting on. It's just so disgusting. But I think for the most part, there are a lot of men out there who aren't that seem like they are skirting up against that because they just don't know. They don't understand. A lot of women don't know. A lot of women don't get it. A lot of women don't get it.
Don't get what?
Just even what gender inequality even means. Like, there are a lot of women who are still fine with the inequality, the gender inequality that we've been living with for so many years. So it's kind of a big learning curve for a lot of people. And I kind of, I've just seen opportunities, I've just seen opportunities in my personal life where it's not so, it's more gray. It's a little bit more gray.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, right? Life is not black and white. Life is many shades of gray, right? So is this conversation in many, many ways. Yeah. I think for someone like myself, I think you and I have kind of different upbringings in that sense. So your perspective on things is a lot different than mine. I grew up around a lot of toxic men, just not in my family alone. On the outside, in the neighborhood, cousins, uncles, the kind of shit that would come out of their mouth. You're just like, and now as an adult, I look back on it, I'm like, oh my God, as an adult, if they say that shit in front of me today, I would slap their face. I would just hit them the hardest I could fucking get my hands on them.
Right.
Because it's so repulsive and it is so offensive where you're like, I don't even know what I can possibly tell you that would make sense to you besides me slapping the shit out of your face.
Right.
Now. Like, that's the only thing that would wake you up to be like, oh my God, what did I say? To be like, you said something really fucked up. You said something really messed up, Don't you think though that there needs to be some kind of either a corporate study or maybe Kabiri Consulting can do that about the toxicity level in corporate environments for people to be like, okay, this is a very toxic thing to do. Like, we're making all these women uncomfortable. For instance, I briefly worked at a studio, very big studio. And, I worked with all the executives and the the president's assistant was this young guy. He was like in his late 20s, early 30s. So I used to work there, and I would interact with all these, executives and interact with him. One day he messaged me out of the blue, like via like the work message, and goes, "You look like the kind of girl that would have a few tequilas and would let loose and go crazy." I was like, I barely drink. Like, what? Why would you say that? Then he was like, well, I'm going to the beach this weekend. Do you want to join me? No, I fucking don't want to join you. Like, what? No, we work together. Then he started getting really aggressive. Every time he would call me, he'd start yelling and screaming at me. I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck is your problem? Like, why are you yelling and screaming at me? He'd be like, you come across very, very loud, Mona, on the phone. Loud? So I reached out to other people that I worked in the office, and I was like, hey, do I come across this way? They're like, who told you that? And they're like, you're the nicest fucking person here. Who's telling you this? I'm like, this person. Then I start talking to other women in the office. I'm like, hey, have you had a kind of a sexual harassment thing going with this person? Oh my God, Mona. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, you should go and talk to so-and-so girl. Oh, go talk to another girl. Blah, blah, blah. All these stories started coming out. And so many women were just so scared to speak up. They didn't want their job. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to rock the boat, Nika. That is toxic. That is toxic. So I went to HR, reported this person, named all the women who had come forward to me. And I was just like, these women are scared. Because they're scared that they're going to lose their jobs because if they come forward and talk about this piece of shit. So I'll speak on their behalf, and I'll tell you that this guy is a piece of shit, and he's creating a toxic environment. And he represents the president's office of this massive studio. Do you want this kind of representation? And they're fucking freaked out. Now, they're probably freaked out because of the bad PR that was going to come their way. So they were like, oh shit, we gotta take it easy. So what did they do with this guy, Nika? Any other guy, I think because he's a good looking white guy, all they did is they sat him down. They were like, don't do this shit again. We know what you're doing. Don't do this shit again. He kept his job. He got his promotions. He was fine. Nothing happened to him, right? Toxic masculinity. Well, he got encouraged. There were no repercussions for him. Zero.
So what would justice have looked like for you in a situation like that?
Fire him. He should be fired. He's done it with enough women. It's not just a one-off instance. It's different if it's just a one-off instance, right? It's different when 10 different women come forward. And those are the women that are present. How many other people does he interact on the office's behalf on the outskirts that he has affected and they won't open their mouth?
Yeah.
This guy is toxic. But toxic masculinity is constantly being pampered and being patted on the back and just dismissed as he won't do it again. Oh, no, the fuck he will. Oh, he will. You just created a monster. You told him that he can do fucked up shit and get away with it and even get promotions. That's the kind of toxic masculinity that I'm referring to. So I'm asking you, Nika, as a data scientist, is that something that even can be quantified? Like, how does a decision scientist like yourself go to an office and even try to measure this level of toxicity in an environment?
I don't know if they would. I mean, because toxicity it's so constructed. It's like it's subjective and it's constructed. Now, sexual harassment there's a legal definition for it, and you can prove the elements of that kind of an offense. There's a hostile work environment. There are certain actions that are taken. There's a suggestion, perhaps of quid pro quo, like you keep your job if you do such and such. Like there are ways you can prove out with evidence, if you have it, that kind of offense. Toxicity, I mean, it's so subjective. I don't really know how to explain that. Like I said, I've been in situations where I worked at a company where, they hired a new CMO, and half the team was like, this guy is super toxic. And the other half was like, I love this guy. We were all mostly women, most of us. It was, on a marketing team. And I mean, that's just, But anyway, so it's hard to, I don't know. You'd have to come in with your own definition of that. And I think each of us has a different definition. And I think it's so much about our experiences. I feel shitty, so he's toxic. And that's not unfair. I'm just saying that that's just how we end up talking about toxicity in everyday language.
Right. I mean, I use toxic in terms of, hey, this person may be toxic for me, but are they doing this to other people too? Or is it just me? And if they're doing this to me, what is it about me that makes them feel that they can come and speak to me this way or do this to me? So then I'm different in that sense. Like, I will go and talk to you. I will sit you down and be like, what's up? What's going on? I constantly feel this rift. I constantly feel this kind of attack from you. What's up? Is something going on? Is something bothering you? Am I doing something to bother? And I think for my experience, 99% of the time when I do have these conversations, shit diffuses. It diffuses.
Yeah.
But however, in this guy's case, like the studio that I work for, he did not want to be challenged. He did not want to be confronted. Right? Because he was working for the president's office. So he was the fucking big man. He was like, I should be able to get as much ass as I want. And women to not open their mouth. But sometimes you fuck with the wrong bitch and then you get, then you get your ass whooped a little bit.
So if I had to put if I had to define toxicity, I think one element of that, one attribute of toxicity would be the sense of entitlement. Like would be this entitlement that for whatever reason, because you're a guy or whatever, because you're in power, because you're the boss, whatever. I'm entitled to violate the boundaries, the rights, I'm entitled to do what I want without giving a shit about how the other people feel. I think that was one way to really kind of nail down like what might be toxic. And the reason why I say that's toxic, I mean, I think about toxicity like a gas, like it spreads, right? It has to spread and permeate things, is that it kind of creates a chill in the workplace or in whatever environment you're in. It creates a kind of sense of like, okay, well, there's nothing I can do to work with this guy. There's nothing I can do to get along with this guy. He has suddenly become irrelevant. This is where I go with it.
Yeah.
An entitled person, man or woman, suddenly becomes irrelevant to me because there's no recourse. There is no way it does not work. It just does not work unless I submit, and I'm not going to fricking do that. Yes. And if I submit, then the relationship becomes toxic because it starts creating more problems on top of problems. That kind of, and that kind of spread becomes, it's not great.
And have you personally experienced this kind of stuff that you're referring to?
I've this is so interesting. I experienced it with a female boss I had. Yeah.
Interesting.
And actually harassed her by that. Yeah.
And why was she toxic? What was her problem?
Because she was, I thought we were friends. She was in a relationship with another woman. They were in a committed relationship. I thought we were friends. She was my boss, but we would, hang out. We just had a lot in common. She was really cool. But I'm not a lesbian. I'm just not. And, one day we were hanging out and she just had a moment with me and she said, I feel this thing with you and don't you feel it too? And, and I was like, no, I'm not. I mean, I dig you, but I'm not gay. And she was like really insistent that she felt it and she knew it was there. And she just, this is why I can't stand people who say they're empathic because they aren't. Like, she was like, I feel it. I know it. I can feel it. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, it's not there. Like, I can't be gay any more than you can be straight. And, and ever since then, she made, I reported straight to her and she made my life a living hell. Before that, she was going to get me promoted. She was going to get me transferred to another job. And then after that, I had to go get her dry cleaning. I had to bring her orange juice in the morning. The job she promised me was never going to happen. It was just one, I had to submit. She was entitled to me and she didn't care what I felt about it. And she was going to punish me for that. And the only option I had was to submit. And so what did I do? I basically, in an overly dramatic way, just didn't show up for work. I didn't call in. I didn't quit.
Oh, you just quit.
I just decided I'm not going anymore. And, because I had the privilege of being employable enough to have already had another job. Like I had an employer somewhere else wanting to take me away from there anyway.
Okay.
So I had this other option, and I didn't call to quit. I didn't even contact HR. I was just like, fuck that shit.
Yes.
I'm giving her what she deserved. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Like it's confrontational, but it's not confrontational, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So of course she calls me, HR calls me, and HR is asked like, well, what's up? And I told them, I was like, this is exactly what happened.
Wow.
And they took me to lunch. But she kept her job. And I don't think she did as well in the company afterwards. My friends who worked there. But anyway, that's the whole story.
Why do you say that she didn't do well? What did you hear about?
I had some friends who were still working at that company after I left, and she was up for promotion. She was like a star. She was a rising star in the company. She was on her way up, and over time, they just stopped giving her those opportunities too, because they were really afraid of.
She had to be a man, Nika, to get away with that shit.
Perhaps, yeah.
Men get away with that shit a lot more than women do. Way more.
And the fact that she was lesbian probably hurt. I mean, it probably, added to it. Like it's bad enough that you're sexually harassing someone, but if you're gay and sexually harassing someone, there are two things wrong, So I don't know.
Right. I mean, being a woman and then being a gay woman at work, you already have like these like barriers that you're like, mountain that you're trying to climb out of. And then if you start abusing your power, like in the fucked up way that you just mentioned, now you've created even more challenges for yourself because you were already trying to claw yourself out of this bullshit ass hole that they put you in to begin with, right? Yeah. I mean, Nika, I kind of look at the world, I mentioned to you, I'm a big history buff. Like, for instance, I learned about Einstein, that Einstein had side chicks. He was married, then he was living with his first cousin. He was hooking up with his first cousin, and then he was also banging his assistant on the side. This is toxic masculinity. Yeah, did he discover the theory of relativity? Yeah, but apparently he also discovered the theory of banging your relatives, and that is not cool. So I kind of look at things from this aerial shot of like historically, how much have toxic men influenced the world, caused wars? Look at even the chaos that we in today. We had a toxic male president who did not give a fuck about people during the pandemic, gave everybody the middle finger, got a fucking vaccine on his way out, him and his mail order bride, and gave everybody the middle finger, lied through his teeth. God knows how many cases they're going to build against him. And I look at that level of toxicity and say, why is that acceptable? Why is that level of toxicity acceptable from a man, but a woman shows slight thing of toxicity and she's written off?
It's not acceptable. I think it's Andre
calls me the Pantene lady because I have really good hair.
I hate your hair. I forgot we were talking. Yeah, it's not acceptable. And that is, I think certain people accept it because they get something out of it. Either the security of knowing that they can't be wrong or not, having already loved, I think I was talking with someone else about this, about how great Trump is at being a brand. Like just being such a strong brand among his brand followers that he could do whatever and they would just forgive him for it. Like if only like Microsoft and Nike had that kind of brand loyalty, right? And they have a lot of brand loyalty, but it's not acceptable. And I think that because of that, he's not relevant. That's just my opinion. I feel like maybe this is naive of me, but I feel like as a woman, as a person, fuck being a woman, as a person, I have the power to decide you're irrelevant. Like you're just, you don't work. You do not make this shit work. I just, I think if more people exercise that kind of power. Yeah. I'm not saying everyone should be like me. I don't want to say that at all. But if more people exercise the power to signal to all of us this norm of that, the irrelevance of that behavior, how not just the toxicity, but you're not even good enough to be part of this society. You know what I mean? Like, you're not.
Well, then we need to come up with an island that's called Fuck Office and you can just fuck off on that island.
Just on that island. Because you're not helping the situation. Right. You're not helping society move forward. You're
fuck off to Fuck Offistan. That's just fuck Offistan. Andre said, to be fair, all people in power are toxic. Is the Queen a saint? She's done far more harm than Trump. Right. But that's one woman in power. One. Versus how many men in power have committed atrocious crimes throughout history and continue to.
Okay, but to that person's point, suppose we lived in a world where females were the dominant gender throughout all of history. Yeah. Would females then, that would mean that females would be in more positions of power than men right now, right? Sure. Everything would be reversed.
Yeah.
Do you think that the women who in that hypothetical world were in positions of power, would they be less toxic than the men? Is it power? Is it power or is it gender that makes men toxic?
I think, in my opinion, I think it's the acceptability of fucked up shit from a particular gender that just makes it that much more okay. I think maybe people say that power corrupts people. I don't believe that. I don't believe power corrupts people. I think power just reveals who you really are. You were gonna be that shitty person when you have $5 in your bank versus $500 million in your bank. You were gonna be that shitty person. Power and money just reveals your character. That's all it did. I mean, look, if we're gonna talk about toxic women, where there have been a handful, not a lot, because most women have never been really given positions of power. But like Aung Suu Kyi, right, in Myanmar, the Rohingya Muslim crisis that she caused, she's a woman. She was in prison. Yeah. You would think that a woman would have much compassion and understanding, but yet she caused a whole fucking damn genocide. And now they're going after her, right? They're going after her. They're yanking her Nobel Peace Prize away. They're trying to try her in an international court for crimes. But you kind of look at that, you're just like, okay, that's one woman who did that, right? And to his point about the queen is also toxic. One woman. But if you look at the ratio of men versus women, men hands down have a higher level of toxicity than women, in my opinion.
And it's not because they are in positions of power. It's because they're men, because there's something about them, because their power is just making them more of what they already are. So are you saying that men are genetically toxic?
I would say men are genetically toxic. I think there are some things that are more accepted by women that men do that other women would just come and shame you for it if you call a man's toxic behavior out. Another woman or even other men would come and beat you down. For instance, I was watching this amazing documentary called Hysterical that has just come out about women in stand-up comedy. So there's all these, your Nikki Glazers and your Amy Schumers and Jessica Kirson, and it's a really, really fantastic, season one, episode one that I watched. And the one key thing that really stood out to me is that there was a newcomer comedian. Her last name is Bachman. I forget her first name. And she was in a room and Harvey Weinstein was there with some young girl, right? He was sitting there. And she was like, are we not going to call out the 80,000-pound gorilla that's in the room? Which is, she was referring to Harvey Weinstein. She goes, yep, I'm a rape survivor. And fuck all rapists. Like, she was really just kind of calling out Harvey Weinstein, and and it went viral. The video went viral. It was a really big deal. And you know who was shaming her and booing her to shut her up? Other men. Men. Knowing goddamn well what this man did. Knowing goddamn well what Harvey Weinstein did. These other men were booing this woman who had the courage and the nerve to stand up there and call this fucking toxic piece of shit out. And these other men were coming and supporting him. Why? Because that's what bros do. Bros stick with each other, right? Bros before hoes, baby. Bros before hoes. They don't give a fuck, right? What, these motherfuckers didn't know what he did? Of course they knew, but they were like, oh, we're not gonna go against Harvey Weinstein. He's a man, he did something. We don't know. These are accusations. I love it whenever a woman comes out and says, that this man raped me or he did something horrific. Always the other guys will go, well, I need to see evidence. I need to see proof. I mean, how bad was it? I had a guy, I shit you not, last week, a reporter of a very big organized media organization was talking to me, and I was telling him about an incident, and his question was, yeah, but how bad was it? How bad did you get harassed? That was his question. I'm like, so does it only count for you when I get raped? Is that when it counts as harassment to you? And I was like, this conversation's over. I don't need to justify anything to you. I need to have this conversation, right?
I think I've just had very unusual experiences. I think I have, because like in the men that I used to train with in the kickboxing gym, I had once an incident where I felt like I was out with a bunch of my friends, and I ended up at one of the guys' houses, and I felt like there was pressure. I felt like one of them was putting pressure on me to go to bed with him. And when I told my other guy friends at the gym, they were very supportive of me. They were like, fuck him. They were calling me.
But would they go? Yeah, but would they go and talk to him and be like, hey, back off. That's my friend. Back off.
I did. I actually called him up and I told him, hey, I think you were trying to rape me, and here's why I think that. And we had a great conversation we honestly had a conversation about it.
And he was like, yep, I was trying to.
I think I put the fear in him. I think he just didn't get it. He just did not get it. And I said, look, you don't want to be in this position. I could call the cops. I could get you in trouble. You do not want to be in this position where some other woman who hasn't trained with you for, however years that I've trained with you and know you in every other way. And, who's your friend or whatever. You don't want some other women to get you in trouble and put you in jail. So I think it freaked him out. I think he totally freaked out.
Did he apologize to you? How was it?
Yeah, for sure he did. Yeah. He said that wasn't my intention. We misunderstood the situation. I did not mean to do that, and we were both really drunk, and, it was one of those things. And there was definitely a distance between us after that. He respected my space. He got it. And even after that, he said, I'm never going to call you again. You have to call me first. I'm not going to call you again. I think my experiences are just, I don't know, maybe I'm just not the right person to talk to about it.
No, look, you're a decision scientist. Of course you're the right person to talk to about this. No, but you know what it is, Nika? Here's the thing. Of all the things that I'm mentioning, I have some incredible, awesome men in my life.
Yeah.
Whether it be my super fan James, who's on here watching, or whether it be my personal friends, they're not, there are some good men in my life. They are literally, I can count them on my hand, but they're very handful. They're not, most of them have just had, I think maybe also because I grew up in such not that America is any less of a patriarchal and misogynistic environment, but growing up in South Asia, it is highly, highly toxic, highly misogynistic, highly patriarchal. Yeah. I mean, Nika, we couldn't even have this conversation in Pakistan without men coming and ridiculing us or trying to shut this conversation down, or even reporting it to Facebook and be like, shut this shit down. Shut it down. We don't want to hear this, that we do this shit. Let us do what we do, because we are men and we should be entitled to get away with whatever the fuck we want. And that's the kind of, I think, toxicity that I come from. So maybe that's why we have such different perspectives. I mean, Nika, you are of Persian descent. Is there not like, man, like toxic masculinity in Persian culture? Of course there is.
Yeah, there's super hardcore. The way I just, that's why I don't have a lot of Persian friends. Like they're irrelevant to me. It's irrelevant to me. You are, that shit has no place in the world. It does not make things work. Society cannot, I mean, look at where we are in the world. It's a shit show. Like society does not function.
That's right.
When we treat other people as less than, and we feel entitled in doing so. It just does not fucking work.
That's right.
If you are going to do that, you are not relevant to the future of our planet, to the future of the human race. You are just a sideshow. And a lot of those people who I call sideshows and irrelevant are in very high positions of power who call a lot of the shots.
That's right.
Well, I don't give a shit. I still have the power to say you are irrelevant to me. And I don't care if it means nothing to them and if it doesn't get anybody anywhere. I can still, as one person, and each of us independently can stand up and say, you know what? You're dead weight. You're just dead weight.
Right. You know, one of the things that I come across is, among conservative men, which is always fascinating to me, and conservative men in America and conservative men in South Asia, is that they'll be the first ones to be like, oh my God, did you see so-and-so actress or so-and-so dancer or singer dressed up in such a trashy way? No wonder these women get raped. No wonder women,
irrelevant to me.
Irrelevant, right? Irrelevant.
Yeah,
right.
Doesn't make any sense. Makes no sense.
But Nika, these men are also head of states. These men are also president of countries. They're also CEOs of corporations. This is the kind of shit that they think. These are our judges. These are our lawmakers. These are our fucking even lawyers. Like these people sit in really big positions of power and they hold this kind of mentality. And I had somebody tell me, oh, well, I have 2 daughters. I couldn't possibly be misogynistic. I'm like, you gotta be fucking shitting me.
Yeah.
I was like, you know who also has daughters? Bill Cosby. You know who also has daughters? Harvey Weinstein. You know who also has daughters? Fucking Louis C.K. All these people have daughters. Just because you have a daughter doesn't make you all of a sudden like a fucking champion of women. My brothers, my very own blood, okay, used to laugh in my face, used to mock me for being a feminist. This is like me being 15 years old, coming from Pakistan and being like, I am a feminist. That's a very progressive thing to say for someone who comes from such a misogynistic, patriarchal environment. Yeah. And I would sit there and be like, I am a feminist and I am proud to be a feminist. And I have 4 older brothers and my brothers would be like, psh, feminist, get the fuck out of here. What the fuck you know about feminism, right?
Yeah.
These same men today, Nika, have daughters. They all have daughters.
Yeah.
Biggest feminists. Do I appreciate the change? I do. But the feminism is a limited feminism. The feminism only for their daughters and their wife. The sister can go fuck herself. The mother can go fuck herself. And every other woman can go fuck herself.
That's not feminism. That's not feminism.
But they think they are.
No, it doesn't matter what they think. It's just not. You can believe what you want. It's just not by definition what that is.
Right.
It's not.
Right. I agree. Nika, how do we, do you think the world would be a better place if women were the leaders?
I think the world would be a better place if there was more a diversity in leadership. Mm-hmm. I don't think, and if that means, yes, it might mean more women in business, it's a big deal. In the tech startup world, white men, it's all there is. It's a big deal. There isn't diversity, and I don't think that they should be replaced by women. I don't think whites should be replaced by minorities. I think true diversity is the way to go for no other reason than because our businesses, our political institutions, our educational institutions are serving a diverse population. Mm-hmm. And if there isn't enough understanding of the people that you're trying to serve because you are so removed and siloed and detached from those people, you're irrelevant. You can't do a good job. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. Right. And if you don't give a shit, then, and this is what I really wish, and I just wrote an op-ed piece about the new Georgia law about this. If you really do want to believe that you are entitled to where other groups are less than, and they don't deserve what you have, then just fucking come right out and say it. So we know who the fuck you are. Like, just come right out and say it. But don't hide behind some sneaky laws, some Jim Crow type crap. Don't try to, diminish or minimize people or women for saying they're feminist. Just come right out and say, I hate women. Just come right out and say it. At least you can have some integrity and we can have an honest conversation about it.
And Nika, some guys who might be listening to this conversation might say, oh my God, Mona hates men, and it's like, not at all. I hate toxic men, just like I hate toxic women. It's the same thing, right? But however, because more men are in positions of leadership, which is why I'm calling out the toxic men more than I'm calling out the toxic women. I know James just said, he said you can have bad women leaders. Example, Margaret Thatcher. You're right. And I just gave an example of Aung Suu Kyi, right? But then also look at Angela Merkel, and also look at, Jacinda Ardern.
You can say the same about men too. There are a lot of male leaders that are, well, I don't know much about Nelson Mandela. I want to believe he wasn't a bad guy. I mean, I thought Jimmy Carter was a decent president. I mean, I keep going back. Like, I really want to know what you think about, is it the gender or is it the position of power? If the situation was flipped and women were in positions of power, would we be as quote unquote toxic?
I think it's not such a black and white answer. I think it's more of like somewhere in the gray spectrum. I think toxic men are attracted to positions of power, and we let them get away with it because they are men. If toxic women gravitate towards positions of power, and they do get in positions of power, and then they slightly fuck up, society would be the first to fucking tear them down and bring them down. However, a man will get a much bigger pass. A toxic man would get a much bigger pass than a toxic woman would.
I agree. And still, because even though that particular person is in a position of power compared to another, like a woman in that position of power, men as a whole have had advantages over many years. And because of that history, men as a whole have had more legal power, more social power, more financial, economic power. And has that created over all this time a toxic mindset?
Yes.
And if women were in that position over history and over time, would we then have that same toxic mindset?
I don't know. Let me just get there first, and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Let women just get there first. Like, we can't even get there. Holy shit. I mean, look at the female presidents and prime ministers around the world. Pakistan had a female prime minister. India had a female prime minister. My God, just go around the world. So many places have had female leadership, and yet America just can't bring itself to have a female leadership. They always find faults. There's always something wrong with the woman that's running. Always. There's always something wrong. And it's not just the men who are coming out and saying this. It's other women who come out and say this. I mean, the fact that, Jordan Klepper, who I fucking love from The Daily Show, he went and was interviewing people. He's a correspondent on behalf of, The Daily Show. And he went to a Trump rally, which was like, and all these white women, majority of white women voted for Trump. And he was interviewing this white woman, and he said, a woman can be a female, there can be a female president. This woman goes, absolutely not. Being a president is a man's job, because a woman, she gets her periods, she gets her menopause, and she gets hormonal, and then she can just start a war just like that. This is a woman.
Yeah, there's a huge learning curve. Lots of women are facing a huge learning curve too.
Yes. Yeah,
it's not just, I mean, people are confused all over the place. We are in a huge moment of transition.
Yes.
It is rocky and it is rough.
Yes.
And it's just going to be rough for a while.
I agree. But I think, you know what it is? But she was also, I think she was like in her 60s or 70s, right? So maybe that's a generational thing too. What generation of women are just like, no way. For instance, we had a women's march in Pakistan, right? The young women took it to the streets. Women in their teens in the 20s and 30s were out in the street. Women who were like 45 up were like, oh my God, look at what these women are doing. They're taking out the streets. And you were like, you're a fucking woman. You went through shit. Don't you understand?
But I get it on some level, because if you imagine being 50, 60 years old, living your entire life believing one thing, believing everything should be a particular way. And here comes a new generation of women saying, hey, you just wasted 60 years of your life doing it all wrong. Of course, you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, it can't be. There's going to be some cognitive dissonance there. There's going to be some tension that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't have wasted my entire life. I can't have done that. I have to hang on to like what I believe to be true, or else my life is a waste. And then it's not really about the issue. It's not about feminism. It's about these independent women trying to come to terms with the fact that they had a raw deal.
Right. But so then are you then referring to these women? Is it about their pride? Is it about their ego that they're feeling, oh my God, I'm or is it an identity crisis for them at that point?
It could be regret. It could be sadness. It could be, I mean, nobody likes to believe that they've been doing it wrong for so many years. It feels shitty.
Right.
It feels like you've made serious errors, serious mistakes in the one shot you had on this planet.
Yeah.
You want to hang on to the idea that your life, you're not a waste. Your life wasn't wasted, that you did it okay, that you did it right. And this is again, like decision science. We do not like the feeling of having made the wrong decision. We do not feel comfortable with that idea. It actually paralyzes us when we do make bad decisions. Those of us who have made a series of bad decisions in the past are much more likely to be indecisive in the future, according to research. It's paralyzing to be wrong.
Right. But Nika, what about the fact that if you had lived 60 years of your life on this planet making wrong decisions, and now you yourself have daughters and granddaughters?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't you want to stand up for that and to be like, you know what, I fucking did it wrong, but I don't want them to go through the shit that I went through?
Yeah, I'm not saying it works. I'm not saying that it works. I'm just saying I can have compassion. Like I look at my mom and I love my mom, and I can look in her eyes and I can see a woman who's been through pain and hardship, who's had a lot of experiences, and I can see the human in her and love that human. And I can understand why she might resist some of the things that I believe, or some of the things that I might do, or some of the, but I can get that. Like I can get that. And thank God my mom supports me as a woman. Like thank God she does not belittle my choices or anything like that. Yeah. But I mean, there is something human in that. So I guess there's a difference between what you choose to do and how you actually react to it and feel about it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
yeah,
I get how hard it is. But in the end, if you don't put the future of the next generation ahead of your own ego.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know where we go from there,
I agree with you. I think for me, when I saw the thing about older women trying to take down the younger women because they're wearing jeans and t-shirts in the streets because it's a conservative Muslim country, so they're like, oh my God, these women, they're wearing jeans and t-shirts. Okay, all right, bitch, you put on a fucking t-shirt and jeans too. Who's fucking stopping you? Like, for reals, But I think this, and then then men come in and they're like, see, you're wrong because other women are coming and pulling you down. But that's because you're wrong, because we should keep all the power. I had this Pakistani guy that I became friends with, and Western educated, mind you. Western educated, comes from a very wealthy family. Western educated. And I thought he was like a different kind of guy. I was like, oh my, I think he's progressive, whatever. I started talking to him. Oh my fucking, it's as if I was sitting in like the fucking 15th century. I was like, this conversation is painful. He was like, women need leadership, he said, and men have to be the leaders of their homes. Men, it has to be a patriarchal culture. And I remember just looking at him and being like, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me right now. I just looked at him. I was like, no wonder your wife divorced you. I was like, cause you're such a backward piece of shit. And he was like, I don't appreciate this kind of language. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. You are irrelevant to me, right? That mentality is irrelevant to me. I don't care. The fact that you sit here telling me that your wife left you, and then you sit here and keep walking down the same destructive path in America, thinking that you're going to find some woman that's going to accommodate your fragile ego, okay? And your fragile, holding on to patriarchy. It's not going to work. So is that, Nika, do you think, it's definitely cultural conditioning, but is that also, is that not toxic masculinity? I think it is.
It doesn't work. I don't know. I mean, sometimes, okay, here's where I struggle because, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
You say you struggle. Like, what do you struggle with?
I try to come up with hypotheticals because I want to push the boundaries of my beliefs. And one hypothetical that I sometimes come up with is, like, I'm running these simulations in my head. Imagine a society where everyone is happy. Everyone is happy. Everyone is living exactly the way they want to live. You ask the women, you ask the men, they are content, they are at peace. And in that society, however, at the same time as everyone being happy, there's a division of labor. Men have certain, they're calling the shots and women are following. And that's just the way it goes. And everybody's okay with that. Mm-hmm. Is that a toxic environment? Is that an unhealthy situation? Who am I to go into that environment and say this is toxic masculinity at play? There's gaslighting going on. I mean, doesn't that minimize and diminish the power of the women to choose what they're doing and the happiness of that? I don't have an answer. I don't know. This hypothetical situation might be so hypothetical it's unrealistic. I don't even know.
Nika, I don't know a single society that functions like that.
I mean, it's a hypothetical society, right? That's why I try to push the boundaries of that.
Right.
But I don't know every society. I don't know. We don't know of every tribal society that has ever existed in the Amazon.
We don't
know how things.
Yeah, Scandinavian nations seem to have a pretty good grip on gender equality. I'm sure they still have their own share of challenges. Like, for instance, I have a comedian friend of mine. He goes to Sweden a lot because he has a very big following there. And he's like, Mona, when I go to Sweden, he goes like, when you go to a club, the men cannot approach the women. The women have to approach the men. Women do the choosing, not men. And if a guy approaches a woman, it's like a big no. He's like looked down upon. If a man goes on a date with a woman and he picks up the tab, the woman gets offended because she's like, oh, are you expecting sex in return because you picked up the tab on me? Now, you reverse that in America. A woman gets offended if a man doesn't pick up the tab when she goes on a date with him, right? But the guys in there like, okay, well, I pay for the date. Can I expect something? And then women get offended at that too. Women say, oh, well, I don't want you to expect anything. Just my presence alone and the fact that I look fabulous and I'm here with you should be enough, right? And that's up for debate too. I don't know the answer to that one either. But I think I honestly don't know any society, and maybe that's a research we can do where it is that kind of hypothetical that you described, right? Then
it might not be in a nation state. It might not be in a country. It could be in like a community. It could be,
sure.
I mean, who knows? Like there could be a Pakistani tribe on the border of Afghanistan somewhere where, women are submissive and they're second-class citizens, but they're fine. I don't know. I guess if that were the case, is that toxic? In other words, who determines what's toxic? Is it the people who are in that environment experiencing it? Is it the people from the outside looking in? Is it just about what you don't like? Is that really what it comes down to? I don't know.
I think the oppressed decide if it's toxic or not. The people who are with the less power decide if
they don't feel they're oppressed. If they don't feel they're oppressed. If they feel like they have, because I know women who are in second-class situations or second-class like subservient situations who feel they do have power. Like they do feel that they have. I've heard that argument before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if they're okay?
I mean,
this is cultural relativism. That's what this is. I'm just getting at. It's like different societies, different cultures have different ideas of what's okay.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think for me to even have this conversation, like in a Middle Eastern country or a South Asian country, would be scandalous, right?
Well, yeah, that's why we know.
I'd probably have the government try to come and like throw me in prison for blasphemy or God knows, or they try to slap me with some bullshit thing and be like, oh my God, it was offensive to my very fragile ego, and now I have to punish you for it, right? I mean, it's a possibility. Andre said While it's very simple, ask marginalized men if they're safe around white women. The gender of our oppressors shouldn't feel better because they aren't like us. That is a very valid point, Andre. Or we could run stronger. We could run stronger female candidates for president because we do vote for women to be members of Congress. That is a very valid point too, right? I mean, at the time, Hillary Clinton was the most qualified woman, or at least according to the Democratic Party. She was the most qualified woman, but I don't know. I don't know. Nika, what do you think you're going to see a female president in your lifetime in America?
Yeah. Yes.
Who do you think it would be? AOC?
I don't know. I feel like it's Kamala. I think that she's
Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris. Okay.
That's my bet. That's my bet. Because she's vice president, and that puts her in a really strong position to run.
Yeah.
And she's shit. I don't know what's going to happen. Mona, I have no fucking clue. I can't predict these things.
You're a decision scientist.
Yeah, that's how I know that I can't predict these things.
You're not Nostradamus, but you are a decision scientist, so that's why
the likelihood is high. The likelihood is high that because when am I going to die? Maybe in 20 years, 30 years? Like if I'm lucky? Yeah. Sure, why not?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know if about you, but I never thought that I would see a black president in my lifetime. And thank God, then this perfect man named Barack Obama came along. He's like literally the perfect man. Did I ever describe Barack Obama to you? He's like my dream man. Like if there was a dream man I had to sketch, it would be Barack Obama. He's like perfect to me. I have no words.
He's your like childhood Scott Baio.
He's my child. Yeah. Who was my childhood? My childhood crush was Tom Cruise.
Was he? Oh gosh. Okay, so you're younger. You're definitely younger than me.
Scott Baio. Oh God, Scott Baio has lost his goddamn mind.
Ugh. I feel this. Yeah, I can't believe. I can't. Yeah.
What happened to him?
He had a reality show for a minute there, didn't he? He had a reality show. I remember watching his reality show for like a minute, like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
If anybody out there knows what happened to Scott Baio, you have to tell me. But yeah, I know
what happened to him. He got hit with Trumpism. That's what happened to him.
Yeah, just not the smartest tool in the shed, and can't seem to like low impulse control when it comes to women. And I don't know. He's irrelevant. Now he's irrelevant to me.
Yeah, you're right. He is. All right, we're gonna start wrapping up. I think we covered a lot of ground today about this whole, just the word toxic. We broke that down. Then we went in I went in my personal stories. You went in some of your personal stories. You know, it's interesting, Nika. You and I have most of my female bosses that I've ever had have been incredible human beings. Like
not mine.
Really?
No.
Incredible women.
No. I had one who told me straight up I need to perform less well because I was stealing her thunder.
What?
Yeah. I had one who actually sat in my office and told me that I wasn't cut out for my job, that I should probably consider another career.
Wow.
So trying to help me learn and get no, I've had
interesting.
Yeah, one told me I was the roughest. She's never managed anyone who is so difficult. And the reason why was because I don't know, just weird. I didn't know what my job was. I mean, I got hired and I didn't know what my job was going to be. And she basically told me I had to define what my job was at that company.
Huh.
Which is like, well, that's really kind of interesting because can I also tell you how much my pay is going to be? Like,
right.
Like what you hired me. What do you want me for?
You've never had a single good female boss ever?
I think I can't think of one off the top of my head. I mean, I had one who was nice enough and cool to me, but she was always skipping out and getting manicures and getting her hair done and going to bars and picking men. Yeah, I can't think.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no. I do know. Her name was Ann Pinchak. I worked for her. She's a lawyer, and I did enjoy working with her. So she was an immigration lawyer in Houston, Texas. So if you ever need an immigration lawyer in Houston, Texas, I don't know if she practices anymore. She was awesome. She was just straight up awesome. But that's the only person I can think of right now.
Interesting.
Sorry. Oh yeah, there are a couple others actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, you think about the ones you hate more than you think about the ones you love, right? Like, oh yeah, there are a couple others.
But. I had a boss of a very big shoe company that rhymes with Metchers. And the head designer, she approves all the designs and all the stuff that gets made in production. She was a nightmare to work with. Like a nightmare. But I had something incredible with her, which was that if I wanted to talk to her, she would let me come and talk to her, right? If I wasn't happy about something, she'd be like, my door's open, come in and tell me what's wrong, right? And I would see the people around of how they would bow to her when she would come, and it really boosted her ego. So I think in many ways, she was a toxic person that got put in a position of power and then just kept being toxic and just never was held accountable. Yeah. And I remember that I was a temp person that was supposed to be a temp to hire, and she wanted to hire me. And I told her straight out, I would never work for you. I was like, you are a toxic human being. I told her to her face. I was like, you are awful to the people who work with you. I was like, just look at the people around you and the terror in their face.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
And I was like, this is an unhealthy working environment, and I would never want to work with you. I was like, and I remember, Nika, like this really powerful woman sitting in front of me with literally tears in her eyes, being like, oh my God, like nobody's ever called me out of my shit before. And I could literally see like what a profound impact I had on her. Yeah. That maybe because nobody had maybe called her out on her bullshit or maybe made her aware of her bullshit. So she was like, I guess everything's fine.
Yeah.
But when I did bring the shit to her and did bring her awareness, being like, you are a toxic human being. Look at the people around you. You make my life a living fucking hell. I can't even take lunch. You won't even let me fucking take lunch. What is wrong with you? Right? And she just sat there and she was like, I'm sorry. She goes, I'm sorry. So I think there is something to be said about holding people accountable and seeing how they react.
And how they react. Yeah.
If they react with no remorse, if they react with no accountability, no shame, nothing, then you know they're a fucking toxic piece of shit. But if somebody says, you know what, I'm sorry. Like I wasn't aware that I was doing this or I was coming across this way. What can I do to make it better? Respect.
Yeah.
We're humans. We're flawed. All good. You know? So I think that's the takeaway from this today, kids. Don't be an asshole. Be aware of your assholeness if you are, you know, and somebody calls you out on it. Take accountability. Think about it. Yeah. Take accountability. Nika Kabiri, where can people follow you?
I'm on Twitter at Nika Kabiri. You can just follow me there. And you can go to nikakabiri.com. You can find my 2 websites, one for business, one for personal life, right there. NikaKabiri.com.
Yeah. Nika Kabiri is a decision scientist. And if you have problems making decisions, even with all the data that's given to you, then you got to call my girl Nika. Nika Kabiri, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for this hearty debate. Thank you.
Loved it. Thanks, Mona.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. That was the lovely Nika Kabiri. You guys, that was a really fun conversation. I don't think I've ever had such a open conversation about toxic masculinity in the way that I did today, and even female toxicity, toxicity in certain sense. You guys, I will be back tomorrow with a brand new guest. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. My numbers are going up. I'm literally at the verge of monetizing my YouTube channel. And if you can go and subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Mona Shea Comedian, which is the same name. I put out some new videos on TikTok with the same name. And of course, you can also like my page on Facebook for exclusive content. Also, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mona's Comedy. I will be back tomorrow with a very, very interesting guest who is based in Vietnam. And we're going to have some really hearty conversations. You guys have a good evening. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.